Hello YouTube and welcome to the next routes learning video. On today's video we're going to be revisiting the Midland Main Line, and I'm going to be driving a journey between London St Pancras International and Bedford in an East Midlands Trains Class 222. The total distance for the journey is just under 50 miles, and the scenario that I'm using is one which I've custom created specifically for this video. We're following the real-life timetable of train 1 Mike 71, which is the 8 PM St Pancras International to Corby service, with one intermediate stop on the way to Bedford, which is at Luton. Unfortunately, the route doesn't go any further north than Bedford in Train Simulator, so that will be the terminating point on this video today. The Class 222 diesel electric multiple units have been in service since 2004 and were manufactured by Bombardier Transportation. They are part of the Voyager family of DEMUs and were constructed between 2003 and 2005, with refurbishment happening 2011 to 2012. A total of 27 Class 222 units have been produced, formed of 4, 5 or 7 coaches per train set. The maximum speed of each unit is 125 miles per hour, though the maximum speed we're going to be able to get up to on this journey today is 110 miles per hour, and they have a power output of 750 horsepower per coach. Once in the cab of the Class 222, there's a few things that I need to do to set up ready for departure. So the first thing I'm going to do is just insert the master key, which is just to the left of the combined traction and brake controller there. So if I just click on that now and drag it, then the master key has been put in. The next thing I now need to do is move the reversing handle down to the neutral position, and then at that point reset the AWS self-test sequence. Now that I've done that, once I put the reversing handle into forward, which I'll do just before we start, then I'm also going to have to reset the driver safety device by pressing the Q key. Next I'm going to alter the headlight settings, so I just need to press Shift and H twice, and then that puts the headlights into the day setting. Now if we go around the cab a bit more, first of all let's just take a quick look at the combined traction and brake controller. So you can see there it's currently pointed away from the off position, so as you push it forward that applies the brakes. And the brakes on this unit apply smoothly rather than being in set notches. There are also 4 notches of power, however the way it's been modelled in Train Simulator means that the notches aren't actually completely accurate, and you can actually move the power handle much more finely than you would be able to in real life. This actually makes it harder to judge what setting the power handle is in, as I won't be able to see it when driving due to the position in relation to the driver's cab window. And of course, driving without the HUD, I then have no indication as to what percentage I've got the power set in. The next thing I'm going to do is turn off the driver reminder appliance there, and as you can see just above that we've got the brake gauges, with the needle on the right being the brake cylinder pressure gauge indicating how hard the brakes are applied. Over here now on the right hand side we've got the speedometer there measured in miles per hour. As already mentioned, the maximum speed we'll be able to get up to on this journey today is 100 miles per hour. Just below that we've got an indicator of how hard the brakes are applied. It's got a % sign there, and so as we're travelling at a high speed, when I apply the brakes you'll see that needle climb, and normally I'll try to get it no more than between 50 and 60 as we brake. But as we get down towards 60 miles per hour, then that needle will jump massively as the brakes become much more effective. And as a result of that, you then need to reduce the braking quite quickly, or the train will stop before you want it to. Now if we continue around the cab here, I'm now going to turn on the instrument lights with the switch just in front of us there. So I just clicked and dragged that upwards. And also to the right hand side of us here we've got the horn control, which is a 2-tone horn controlled with the space bar and the B key. Now that we've had a look through the basic cab controls, let's just look at a couple more external shots of the train, and then we can depart and head out towards Luton and Bedford. Departing London St Pancras, the starting speed limit is 15 miles per hour, and we've got around 30 miles to go to our first stop, which is Luton. I'm just accelerating up towards 15 now, and now I'm just cutting the power handle back. One of the problems of not being able to see the power handle, as I mentioned already, is that I don't actually know just how much power I've got applied. And the other thing is that the power handle is very sensitive to control inputs, so it's very easy when trying to put the train into idle to inadvertently apply the brakes instead, which is why you might sometimes see the percentage gauge there going up when I don't actually intend to apply the brakes. The speed limit went up to 20 miles per hour as we left the platform, and now that we've just finished turning right, we can now accelerate up towards the 20 mile per hour speed limit. Diverging off to the right just here is the HS1 or High Speed 1 route, which is the high speed route into Kent and also leads on to the Channel Tunnel rail link. Now that we're doing 20 miles per hour, I've just cut the power right down. I don't think we're going to exceed the speed limit for a minute. Very shortly, the speed limit will be going up to 50 miles per hour, so I'm just looking out for the 50 mile per hour speed board now. We're just passing it there, just on the left hand side, very small, so not that easy to read. You certainly do have to look out for it. And we can accelerate towards 50 miles per hour once the rear of the train has cleared the board, which should be just after we've passed under this girder overbridge. Just to point out that this is a 7-coach Class 222, so of course if you were in a 4 or 5-coach unit, then you would be able to accelerate a little bit sooner. As we now get towards 50 miles per hour, and once again just cutting the power back just to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. Immediately leaving this tunnel, the speed limit is now going up to 70 miles per hour, and I can accelerate as we reach this short tunnel or overbridge just here. The Thameslink line has now joined on the right hand side, and we're now passing the first station out of London St Pancras, which is Kentish Town. As we're now reaching 70 miles per hour, I'm cutting the power back once again, and the speed limit here is now going up to 75, so just as we reach this next signal, I'm just going to give us a little bit of power to accelerate up towards that. The speed limit is now going up further to 80 miles per hour. One of the difficulties also with driving this train is that there is no cruise control, and there's actually quite a number of gradient changes on this journey, so trying to work out exactly what power setting to use to maintain a particular speed isn't that easy. I've just cut the power off again for a moment just to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. Now I'm just giving us a low amount of power at this point so that I can try and maintain a speed as close to 80 miles per hour as possible. We're now coming up on West Hampstead Thameslink station, and the speed limit goes up to 90 miles per hour just here, just before the platform, and so we can accelerate around halfway through the platform. Immediately after the platform, the speed limit has now gone up further to 95 miles per hour. As we're now approaching 95 miles per hour, I've once again pulled back on the power, though it looks like I might have pulled back slightly too much as we're just slowing down a little bit more than I wanted to there. We're now passing through Cricklewood Station. On the right hand side now is Cricklewood Depot, and as you may have noticed, the speed limit has just gone up to 110 miles per hour. As we're now getting up towards 110, I'm just pulling the power back once again to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. Coming up shortly will be Hendon Station. Can't remember actually if it's just called Hendon or if it's Hendon Central. I think it might be Hendon Central. Not 100% certain there. One of the things that you may have noticed on this route is that I'm using 3D track here, and also the trackside vegetation has changed a bit, and that's because I'm using a free update to this route which was done by Trainworks. I think the website is trainworks.eu. In fact, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. On that website you can find updated versions of a number of British routes and also a number of German routes as well. I just think that the track looks a lot better, and also the vegetation looks a lot more interesting with a bit more variety than the default version of this route. We're now passing Mill Hill Broadway Station. The next speed limit change is coming up in a little while, which will be a drop in the speed limit down to 100 miles per hour. And so we've just passed the signal after the station, and the speed limit will be dropping to 100 miles per hour in 2 signals' time. So here's the first signal after the one immediately after Mill Hill Broadway Station, and so I'm now looking out for the second signal so I can prepare to slow down for the upcoming 100 limit. I can now see the next signal coming up just ahead, so at this point I've just cut the power down, and now I'm just applying the brakes up to around 50%, just to ensure that I have slowed down in time. Now I'm just going to give us a low amount of power to ensure we don't slow down too much. The speed limit is now 100 miles per hour as we enter this tunnel, and then as soon as we exit this tunnel on the other side, the speed limit will be going straight back up to 110 miles per hour. We've now passed the 110 speedboard. I'm just going to apply full power just as we approach this signal here, and we're now approaching Elstree and Borehamwood Station. We're now once again back up to 110 miles per hour, so I've just cut the power back. I'm not quite in idle, and it looks like we are losing a little bit of speed, so I'm just going to increase the power slightly now to try and keep us as close to 110 miles per hour as I can. We're now coming up on Radlett Station, which is the halfway point in terms of distance between London St Pancras and Luton, with 15 miles to go now until Luton. From this point I now need to start counting signals, so we've just passed the first signal immediately after Radlett Station, and once we reach the fourth signal we've then got around a mile to go to a speed limit reduction down to 100 miles per hour. So we're now passing the second signal after Radlett Station. And this is signal number 3, so as we approach signal number 4 I then know that at the following signal we've then got the 100 mile per hour speed restriction. So here is signal number 4. And so as we approach the next signal, as soon as I see it, I'll then start braking to ensure that I have slowed down to 100 in time. It also looks like that we are following a train ahead of us. I did put in a train from St Pancras to Leeds, which is only just a couple of minutes ahead of us. And so it looks like we're slowly starting to catch up with it now, though that train won't be stopping at Luton, so it certainly should be able to pull away from us as we do get closer to Luton. However, for the moment I'm going to apply the brakes more as we've just passed the double yellow signal. The speed limit has just dropped now to 100 miles per hour, and at the 100 board we've then got around half a mile to go to an upcoming 95 mile per hour speed restriction. Now that we're down to around 70 miles per hour, I've just released the brakes for now, until I can see what aspect the next signal is displaying. It looks like it has now cleared to a green, so I'm now going to give us some power to start accelerating once again. The speed limit's now dropped to 95 miles per hour as we pass through St Albans Station. Immediately after the station, the speed limit is now going back up to 100 miles per hour. The speed limit is now going back up to 110, and so I'm just accelerating there at the overbridge that we just passed under. Now that we've reached 110 again, I've just cut the power, and I'm just keeping an eye on our speed just so I can adjust the power handle to try and maintain as close to 110 as possible. So we just overtook a First Capital Connect Class 319 on the slow line, and just to point out, I am aware that it is no longer First Capital Connect operating this route, but I have set this scenario a couple of years ago for the simple reason that we don't really have a suitable Class 387, which Thameslink are currently using, and I also just didn't really want to download loads of reskins to have to install them so that I could run Thameslink services along here, and plus setting it a couple of years ago gives the opportunity to see more Class 319s, which I certainly prefer to the Class 377s or Class 387s. Now that we've just passed the double yellow signal, I've got the brakes on once again to ensure that I start slowing down. We're now coming up on Harpenden Station, and just after the station the speed limit drops to 105 miles per hour. The speed limit is now 105, and at the 105 board we then had 5.5 miles to go to Luton. I'm just allowing the train to coast at the moment at just below 70 miles per hour. If the signals start clearing again, then I'll speed up, but for now, while we're riding on double yellow signals, I want to drive at a speed slow enough that if we encounter a single yellow, I'm then able to brake to come to a stop by the time we encounter any potential red signals. The signal there had just cleared to green, so I've just gone back up to full power to start accelerating up towards line speed, which is currently 105 miles per hour, and will soon be dropping to 100 miles per hour. So I've got to look out for a rather prominent building which is right by an underbridge, and then as we reach that, we've then got around half a mile to go to the upcoming 100 limits. I believe the 100 limit is now coming up shortly. I believe that might have been the underbridge that I was thinking about, although it could also be this next one. I'm certainly not going to accelerate above 100 miles per hour at any point along here now. The signal there did just jump up to green just before we reached it, so I've just idled the power at 100 and I'm allowing the train to coast at this point. We're now passing the 100 mile per hour speed board, which is half a mile from an upcoming 95 miles per hour speed limit. I just realised I had the brakes on lightly there where I didn't intend to, so I'm now just going to give us a little bit of power to accelerate back up towards 95. At the 95 board we had 1 1/3 miles to go to an upcoming 90 mile per hour speed limit, and 2 miles to go to our stop. I'm just allowing the train to cruise along at 90 miles per hour at this point. We're now passing through Luton Airport Parkway station, which is around 1 mile from Luton station, and so just after we've passed through the platform, I'm now going to start applying the brakes for our stop at Luton. at between 50 and 60%, and then once the brake effectiveness increases as we get down towards 60 miles per hour, and then going to drastically reduce the braking just so that we don't end up stopping too quickly. We've just passed the 90 mile per hour speed board at this point. And now the brake effectiveness has just jumped up, so I've just pulled the braking right back. And at this point, the brake handle is actually really sensitive to any changes I make. So even if I just tap it really lightly, it releases the brakes considerably or applies them considerably. It's very difficult to make fine adjustments to the current brake force. And so here we are arriving at Luton station. We entered the platform at around 35 miles per hour, which should be slow enough to stop. And I'm aiming to stop here at the end of the platform by the S sign. Just increase the brakes slightly more than I normally would there, but I think we should now be stopped in about the right place. Departing from Luton, the starting speed limit is 100 miles per hour, and we've got around 19 3/4 miles to go to our next and final stop, which is Bedford. As we're now doing around 20 miles per hour, I've now gone up to full power to accelerate. The speed limit in a moment will be going up further to 110 miles per hour, and it will do so before we're able to reach 100. So we've got no further speed changes now for about 10 miles, and then once we've passed through the final station before Bedford, we'll then come up shortly after that on a 100 mile per hour speed restriction. The speed limit is now 110 miles per hour. We're now passing Leagrave Station. As we're now getting towards 110 miles per hour, I'm just going to cut the power back a little to try and ensure we don't break the speed limit, and I will cut the power back further if necessary. In fact, it looks like we are still accelerating at this point, so let's just cut the power back a bit more. I've now cut the power back considerably, and it looks like the speedometer needle is just starting to fall back a little. So as that falls down towards 108 miles per hour, I will then apply a little bit of power if we lose much more speed than that. We're now doing around 108 miles per hour, and it looks like we might be starting to lose a little more speed. Just keeping an eye on that, it looks like we are, so I'm just going to give us a tiny bit more power, just to try and bring that speed up slightly. A lot of people have been asking me recently if I plan on making any videos on the new TGV route from Dovetail Games, and my answer is yes, I do. I also plan on making some videos on the TGV route from Just Trains as well. I just unfortunately haven't been able to get a copy of either of the routes yet, but as soon as I am able to, then yes, I'm going to make some videos on that. And beyond that, I'm also going to make a French signalling guide, which is something that a number of people have requested from me, and within that I'd like to cover the classic lineside signs and signals, and also do a tutorial on the TVM 430 system, which is something I'd been meaning to do for a while for the London to Faversham route anyway, so I'm just going to combine them together into one signalling tutorial. I hope that that helps people out with understanding the French signalling system better. We're now passing Harlington Station. At Harlington Station we had 12 3/4 miles to go to Bedford. In the summer, once I've broken up fully from university and I've done all my exams, with my final exam being the 9th of June, then I do also plan on doing a US signalling guide. I'm not sure if that will be before or after I come back from Chicago, because my Chicago trip is now coming up next month. I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be from the end of June right through until the end of the first week in July. And also, while I'm in Chicago, I'd like to try and get quite a lot of video footage of trains in the area. That's still a plan. I know I wanted to do that in Hungary. Unfortunately, the footage was too shaky, so I'm hoping to use a better camera this time, and also make sure I've got some form of tripod or image stabilization. But I'd really like to get some video footage of trains in America, and maybe just put a little something together for this channel just to show you some of the trains that I've seen, which will all be in the Chicago area. We're now passing Flitwick Station, which is the final station before Bedford, and at this point we've got 9 3/4 miles to go to our stop. And at the signal after this next junction here, then we've got around 1 mile to go to an upcoming 100 speed limit. So we've just passed the junction now. You can see the next signal coming up, indicating around 1 mile to go. And so I'm going to apply the brakes for the 100 speed limit on the next AWS ramp. We've just crossed the next AWS ramp and I've now got the brakes on. Should be hard enough now just to bring us down to 100 in time. And so we're now down to 100 miles per hour, with the speed limit dropping at the entrance to this tunnel here, and then immediately as we exit this tunnel, the speed limit will then be going back up to 110 miles per hour. I haven't actually noticed a speed board which indicates the speed limit goes back up to 110 on the exit to that tunnel, but it certainly shows that you do on the HUD, so that's what I'm going to go by. I'm guessing it's just a speed board that got missed out when the route was made or something like that. The next major landmark I'm really looking out for now is a prominent building on the right hand side, some kind of industrial works or something like that. It's quite an unmistakable building, and so once we reach that building I will then know that we are approaching Bedford Station. Also, another landmark will be a Morpeth board for an upcoming 75 mph speed limit on the slow line, which is 2 tracks to our right. There are no speed changes on the fast line between here and our stop. So if I see the 75 Morpeth board on the slow line, I then know that I've got 2 miles to go to Bedford Station. And then my aim is to apply the brakes for our stop as a point crosses over from the track next to us, just on our right, onto this track. So as soon as that has crossed over and we cross that point in a straight direction, then that's the point at which I need to start thinking about applying the brakes for Bedford Station. You can now see the industrial building that I mentioned on the right hand side there, very prominent and very distinctive. So I do now know that we are on the outskirts to Bedford Station, and so I'm now trying to look out for that Morpeth board on the slow line and also the points crossing over onto this track. We've just passed the Morpeth board there, so we've got 2 miles to go now to Bedford Station. And then at the next signal we've then got 1.5 miles to go to our stop. And I plan on idling the power as we reach the next signal, which is just coming up now. The power is now in idle, and in a moment we're going to start crossing the points. Well, I can now see the points coming over from the far right hand track, and here's the point now joining our track here. And so at this point I'm now going to apply the brakes, ready for our stop. So I've gone up to 60% there on the braking, and of course I will reduce the braking as we get down towards 60 miles per hour and the brake effectiveness jumps. Brake effectiveness just jumped there, so I'm now just reducing the braking. And you can now see the platforms at Bedford Station coming up just ahead. I couldn't work out an exact stopping point here as there is no marker for a 7-coach train, so it's a bit of guesswork involved in trying to work out where to stop here at Bedford Station. And so as I come along the platform now, just increasing the braking slightly, and what I'm aiming to stop is roughly at the platform sign before the last advert. I just applied a little bit of power there unintentionally, and so it should be stopping. You can just see the last advert just coming up now on the left, and so this should now be about the right place to stop, just around here. So here we are, arrival at Bedford. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope that you have enjoyed it. Please don't forget that for the latest channel updates you can find me on Facebook, the link of which is in the description of this video, so you can find my Facebook page through the link in the description of this video. Also, please don't forget that the upgrade for this route and a number of other routes which is available, I have put the link to where you can get these route upgrades also in the video description. Once again, thank you for watching.